You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 33 of the Resilient Podcast, where we tell real stories, have real conversations, and remind each other that healing is possible no matter what life throws at us. This is episode 33, and it's a special one because it is June, and June is Men's Mental Health Month, and also Men's Health Month as well. And today, we're diving into one of the most overlooked and misunderstood areas of men's well-being, which is mental health. And for generations, men have been told, like me, to man up, to stay strong, to hold it all in. But what happens when that strength turns into silence? What happens when the weight we carry gets too heavy and we've got no one to talk to? And I've been in that position before where I've felt like I've had no one to talk to. And at times I didn't have anyone to talk to because when I reached out to people, most of these people were saying to me, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. Find someone else. So I've been in that position before. And I've also had people come to me and tell me that they've been in that position as well, too. So today's episode is about redefining what it means to be a strong man. It's about unlearning toxic masculinity, something that I talk about with my friends a lot. We're also going to talk about breaking emotional barriers and having honest conversations about anxiety, depression, trauma, and healing. And yes, even crying. Because truthfully, there is no resilience without vulnerability. There is no growth without acknowledgement. So if you're a man and you're listening to this episode right now, you're watching this episode right now on YouTube, and you're listening to it on Spotify and all the platforms that you can hear the Resilient Podcast, and you have ever been told to tough it out, or if you love a man who's struggling in silence, for the ladies, for everyone out there who has a man that they love and is struggling with mental health issues and whatnot, or depression and everything that comes with this unfortunate situation, this episode is for you. So let's unpack this. Let's get honest and let's be resilient together. Last month was May, Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And we started off the month with a surprise that I got from my good folks at Terramana Tequila. They came and surprised me at my Brooklyn office, and it was beautiful. It was like a nice Cinco de Mayo themed event. And what they did was they surprised me at the courtyard at my Brooklyn office. And, the reason why they did it is because they said that they wanted to show me their appreciation for how much I love the brand, how much I've been promoting it and whatnot. And I'm really thankful for that. I do so many things in this world, so many things in my life that, I remember talking to my therapist in the beginning of my therapy sessions about like reciprocation and gratitude and, appreciation. And, one of the things I told to my therapist was, I do so many things and I rarely, rarely get anyone to say congratulations or great job, Rob. I appreciate you. I barely heard these words in relationships, friendships, partnerships, even at like work places of employment that I've had, in the past. And it really put me in a position where I started to think to myself, do I ever do anything right? Do I ever do anything that matters or anything that makes someone feel good? Because it seems like in my life personally, people are always vocal and always ready to tell me what they don't like about me, what I did that was wrong, that they didn't appreciate, or whatever the case may be. But I barely, 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 barely heard people in my life, even in my adult life, tell me you did a good job. And, last year when my ex-girlfriend and I broke up, I remember her talking to me about, that we're not supposed to, of course, want to be validated by people, that we should actually have our own self-validation. But, it's a struggle when you believe that you're not doing the right thing, or you believe that you're not doing right for people, or that you're not enough. And then on top of that, you go through situations where people tell you things like that. And it's like sometimes you're saying to yourself, people are telling me what I already knew, or already thought about. And it just puts people, like not just men, but women as well too. It puts people in a position where they just feel like they're never enough. They just feel like they're never enough. And I felt like that with my family. I felt like that at places of employment. I still feel like that at times. And through therapy, we were able to find out that I overextend, that I like to underpromise and overdeliver, and that I really bend over and go above and beyond for so many people. And we tried to dissect it and figure out, like, why do I do this? Why do I always care about making someone else happy over me? And were able to figure it out that a lot of it had to do with my mental health issues, So when Terramana came last month and they did that for me, it made me feel good, because for one of the first times in my life, I felt validated. I felt appreciated. And I was able to be told by the people that were there from Terramana that I was doing a good job for them and helping them with the promotional efforts of the greatest tequila brand in the world. Of course, going back to June of 2023, when ARCG celebrated its 10th anniversary, I felt great. I really did. And, the fact that this year we're celebrating 12 years, it makes me think about those 12 years exactly. And I ask myself, have I done a good job in those 12 years? What have I learned? What have I done wrong? What mistakes have I committed? How many times have I taken accountability for certain things? What can I do better? How can I be a better partner, a better business associate, a better, leader? And, there's been so many challenges with ARCG, with my team, with Oscar, with Diego, with Carl, with some of the people that have been there in the past, some people that are still currently working alongside with ARCG on an associate level. And, when I did that event, and it was a private event where I had asked everybody that was coming to not take out their cell phones and not to take pictures and not to record it, because I wanted people to really be, I wanted these guests that were at my event to have a good time, to not worry about everything else and to stay away from technology for a bit. Even though I had an overhead projector at the event that I was doing a presentation from. But other than that, I had told people, like, folks, please keep, like, the photos and recording and whatnot to a minimum. There was a few photos here and there that were taken. There were people that did take photos with me, when I had finished my presentation, and thanked everybody. But, when I asked everyone, and I mentioned this a few times already, but when I asked everyone pretty much that was in attendance, what would you guys like to see? What would you all like to see in the next 10 years of ARCG Media? And the crowd started pretty much chanting podcast, podcast, podcast. I looked at Carl. I looked at everyone that was in attendance. I looked at my partners and I smiled. And the first thing I said to them was like, oh, no, not a podcast. I'm not doing a podcast. Everybody else and their mother is doing a podcast. I don't want to do a podcast. And they just kept chanting it more and more and more. And I got goosebumps. And even at that moment, when I'm hearing people chanting podcast, I'm thinking to myself, I can't do a podcast, because if I do a podcast, it's going to be boring. I'm not going to know what to talk about. I'm not going to be able to even be organized. I always looked at podcasts and I always said to myself, most folks that have podcasts are very organized. They know how to speak. They know how to engage. And, I'm talking to a friend and associate of mine, Jab, and he's telling me last year, and we recorded this in the documentary, and I'm going to give you guys an update on the documentary in a few minutes. And Jab goes to me, one of the things that I've envied about you is that you know how to hold conversation. And I said to him, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's like you speak and you know what you're talking about. And he goes, that's why somebody like you could have a podcast. And when he said that to me, it brought me right back to June 2023. And, when Terramana was celebrating me earlier last month, it brought me back to that conversation with Jab. And I said, in the last few months, I have been through some very, the last year to be exact, I have been through some very harsh moments. 2024 was one of the worst years of my life. If anything, the worst year of my life. Where I needed to be resilient. The breakup, all these friendships and relationships that I had with people that were just so sabotaged, and so much drama and so much things going on. My family, I started having issues with them. One of the very few blessings for me last year, 2024, was the birth of my niece. The birth of the Resilient Podcast. Going to WrestleMania 40, even though I was sad and depressed because my ex-girlfriend was not there with me. But, watching Cody Rhodes finish his story, that was a blessing. And there were a few blessings here and there after that. But, last year was so rough. And how I survived, how I got out of there, just with a few tears on December 31st, literally saying, well, this year's over. Welcome 2025. And what are we going to do in 2025? Are we going to continue chasing resilience and greatness, or we're going to live in the past? And, when I saw that my ex-girlfriend last month graduated from the police academy and finally became an officer, it put me in that position again where I was like, man, here I am thinking about something about the past, something that no longer serves me, something that no longer concerns me. But like I said, I was wishing her love and support from a distance. And, it was just so unreal. And then towards the end of the month, my birthday came, I turned 39, and there was some other changes with my work. And we wrapped up the Resilient Podcast documentary. We wrapped up the Resilience Project, the documentary. And, I couldn't believe that we finally wrapped it up. Diego started filming with me literally in April of 2024. And he asked me, how long do you want to do this for? Like, how long are we going to shoot this for? And I said, let's do it for about a year. Let's see what happens in a year. And there were so many times during the shooting of this documentary where just the filming aspect of it, where there was just so much stuff behind the scenes, so much stuff that probably we will never discuss. There was ups and downs, there was drama, there was inconsistency. There was days that I showed up and Diego showed up and other people couldn't, that were part of the project. And it was just so overwhelming. And I remember at one point, even Diego wanted to give up. And Diego said to me, Rob, I have to think about this. I have to take some time to think about my future with ARCG, with the Resilience Tribune, with the Resilient Podcast. But, we pushed through. We were able to finish it. We were able to wrap it up. And, right now, what we are working on is maybe some extra bonus clips that we might want to add. And we will be in post-production pretty soon. And, this week I got the chance to speak to a friend about the situation. And my friend was like, congratulations. You finally did it. You finally, wrapped this up. You finally completed this story. And I was like, well, the story's not complete. The story hasn't finished. Maybe for the documentary, of course, there will be an ending to it, but doesn't mean that the story's finished. And then my friend goes, now it's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And do you feel content that you finished it during that time? And I said, yeah, I feel very good that I was able to wrap it up during Mental Health Awareness Month. And now that it's June and it's Men's Health Month and Men's Mental Health Month, my friend asked me, why is it important to talk about, mental health during Men's Health Month? And I said, well, even though May was Mental Health Awareness Month and June is Men's Health Month, it's because, men, and I talk about this all the time, are often conditioned to suffer in silence. We're taught that vulnerability is a weakness, and the truth is there's nothing more powerful than confronting what's hurting us. That's just how I feel. And the truth is, again, that men are dying inside, and many of us never speak up. And this episode, like I mentioned, aims to shift that narrative. And my friend was like, I love that you mentioned that men are dying inside. And I was like, yes, we are, unfortunately, because a lot of us are told, be quiet, I don't want to hear it. I have been gaslighted so much when I have spoken to people about my mental health, about how I feel, about my feelings, my emotions, relationships. I've been gaslighted, by majority of these women that I've dated, majority of these relationships that I was in, even the women that I was just, messing around with, or whatever the case may be. Whenever I would bring up how I felt about something, I was immediately dismissed and gaslighted. And this friend of mine, I spoke to them about it, and they said to me, well, Rob, what does resilience look like for men struggling with mental health? And I was like, resilience is not just powering through. It's having the courage to pause, to heal and to ask for help. It's like, in my case, it's choosing therapy. It's saying I'm not okay and not being ashamed of it. That right there is strength. So my friend asked me, well, why do so many men feel pressure to hide their emotions? And I was like, good question. The thing is, society often rewards emotional numbness in men, unfortunately, calling it toughness. But that emotional suppression turns eventually into anger, depression, and even isolation. And the thing is, we need to unlearn that and create a space where men can be soft, and they're not going to be called sassy for it. where they can be scared and they're not going to be called cowards and wussies. And of course, where they can be strong at the same time. So being soft, being scared, and strong all at the same time. Men there needs to be a space created for that. And, recently I wrote a post on social media where I said that, from my last episode with this gentleman who's a mental health advocate, Nick Loriano, we talked about mental health. We talked about men's mental health. We talked, he opened up about the 3 times that he wanted to commit suicide. And then I knew he had an upcoming event, which actually took place, I believe, a week ago in Brockton, Massachusetts. And I wanted to go to that event so bad, but, work kept me busy. And I was making a few transitions here and there, so I wasn't going to be able overall to make the trip. But, I wrote something and I said that, I want the opportunity to eventually work with him where we can create a space for men so that they can be able to, be soft, scared, and strong and talk about their emotions. And I mentioned this to my friend. So my friend was like, oh, that's beautiful. So my friend goes to me. So question, with the Resilient podcast, with the documentary, with the Resilient Tribune and everything, how has your personal journey shaped the way you view masculinity and mental health? And I was like, well, everybody's journey is different, but my journey has taught me that masculinity isn't about being I remember saying like something like imperiterrible, and my friend goes, ooh. And I said, yeah. And I was like, look, it's about being accountable, self-aware, and emotionally intelligent. And a lot of people don't know accountability, don't know what emotional intelligence is, don't know how to be emotional intelligent. And the self-awareness thing is serious. A lot of people are not self-aware. So I said, I've had to face depression, heartbreak, and self-doubt, and none of it made me any less of a man, because it just didn't. If anything, it's helped me become a better one. So my friend was like, wow, beautiful. And recently there was a situation where not this ex of mine, Ashley, but the previous ex, the person that I was with for 2 years, and then we broke up, and I was single for 3 years until I started dating Ashley. This person has been writing about me on a private diary account of theirs on social media, where they still talk about me. They still some days say good things about me, and sometimes they say the worst about me. And I've allowed it because I said, you know what? People are allowed to express how they feel. People are allowed to say what they want to say, even if you don't agree with it personally. But at the end of the day, like, just looking at the things that they say sometimes, I'm like, look, our relationship, I know that I didn't do right by you. Our relationship, I know that I had wandering eyes, and I would entertain a lot of things, because the reality is this relationship was very interesting and very eye-opening. And again, I believe that everything has its reason. And in this relationship, what I was able to explain to my ex, Ashley, when I was with her, was that past relationship, my ex was allowed to hold a mirror for me for those 2 years and show me who I was, and show me what was wrong about me, and show me all the things that I didn't realize. And that's where the self-awareness stuff started. That's where the accountability stuff started. And I didn't know how much I was gaslighting people and how I was hurting people, because I was normalizing it, because I was like, well, it was done to me, so I could do it to others. But I'm glad that I had that relationship, because if I didn't have that relationship, that person would have never helped me realize all the things that I had done wrong. And that's why when I went into this relationship with Ashley, I was so calm, I was so patient, and I was able to understand more a woman's needs, a woman's desires and whatnot, because in the past relationships, I always cared. I always had empathy somehow, some way, but I didn't have enough of it. And for the most part, there was just a disconnection. But after that relationship ended, and I took like 2.5 years to pretty much heal. It was, I spoke with my therapist for, just because me and this person broke up and it didn't work out, doesn't mean that I stopped therapy. Doesn't mean that I wasn't learning. Doesn't mean, for those 2.5 years, almost 3 years before I moved on, my therapist and I, we broke up in 2020 and I started dating Ashley in 2023, right? All that time that I spent learning. This is before the podcast. This is before meeting Ashley. This is, I was learning little by little how to be a better person, not for people, but for myself. And what bothers me in a way is that I didn't do that for anybody but me, because I needed to love myself more. I needed to appreciate myself more. And this person still feels that I'm the same person that I was when I was with them, that I haven't changed, that I haven't learned anything about accountability, that I haven't taken time to focus on self-awareness and self-loathing and all that stuff. And I'm like, it's not fair that you feel that it's okay for you to dictate to me what's going on in my life, or you feel that you can dictate to me what's going on, overall with me. You haven't been in my life for, the last time I saw this person was in 2023, actually, was the last time I saw them. A little bit after I started dating Ashley was actually the last time that I saw them. And then I didn't see them after. I think the last time I saw them was like September of 2023, because we were hanging out, spending time together. And I even told Ashley, like, hey, by the way, so my previous ex, like, we actually are on good terms. Obviously we're trying to do this thing where we didn't work out as a couple, but we're trying to be friends because we have similar, we have similar backgrounds at work. Like they do PR work. I do marketing, promotions, advertising, and some light PR work. So she was okay with it. And she was like, look, as long as that you give me a reason to trust you, that's all that matters. I'm not going to say that I'm okay with, I'm 100% okay with it, but like, just give me a reason to not feel a certain way, And I said, of course, no problem. So me and this person, we fell off after they found out that Ashley and I were together. And for some reason, they feel, after numbers of times that I said to them, like, look, and at first I was very like, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings, right? But eventually I was able to say with full transparency, like, look, we're never going to be together again. And the reason why is because I honestly believe that you bring out the worst in me and I bring out the worst in you. And I think it's best that we don't do this relationship thing. And I know it hurt them. It hurt me saying it, but it wasn't easy, but I had to say it. I had to say it. And I stood on my word, and I never tried to lead them on into thinking there was a chance. Yeah, we would spend time together, like hanging out, having dinner, but there was no intimacy in the sense of we weren't sleeping in the same bed. We weren't, holding hands. We weren't, caressing each other or whatnot. Of course, every time I saw them, like a hug, kiss in the cheek, right? Like, hey, how are you? But I was there for them because after something happened to them, personally in their life, I was just like, the least I can do is be there for that person, because I know they would do the same for me. And that's what happened. I try to be there for that person as much as I could, even when I got in a relationship with Ashley, but things just went south and it hurt me. And till this day, they felt some sort of entitlement over the fact that I moved on. So when I spoke to my therapist is like, well, Rob, you're allowed to move on. Like, it's been almost 3 years. why do they still feel that, like, have you been sleeping with this person? I said, no, I haven't done any of that stuff. I was like, so, I mean, it's natural that an ex sometimes doesn't want to see their ex partner, especially if they still love them and have feelings for them, moving on. But it's like, you told this person multiple times that, it was best to remain as friends. I was like, yeah, but sometimes you can say whatever you want, and it's not really going to register, or it's just, that's just the way it is, And now I was a bad person for a long time, and then we started talking, trying to do this friendship thing, and then things kind of got a little better. And then once I started dating Ashley, I was the bad guy again. And it's like, oh, you don't have consideration for my feelings, and this is what bothers me. This person has repeatedly said to themselves, and in things that they write about me, that I left them for Ashley. And I said, this is crazy, because we broke up in 2020, and this person broke up with me. October of 2020, this person broke up with me. I did not break up with them. They broke up with me, and they know that they broke up with me. So to have the audacity to say from last year, oh, I was left for another person. We weren't even together when I started dating my new girlfriend. And yes, I understand that there was emotions and feelings and whatnot. And I take accountability for that. And my whole purpose here is not to make someone feel bad or to intentionally hurt someone and destroy someone's heart. But I'm like, look, had this person moved on, I would, of course, naturally feel like, okay, here I get to see this person that I once loved a lot with a new person. But it's like, I'm not going to come after this person with the whole delusion of, you left me for another man, you left me for another woman, whatever. And I'm like, So I was like, you know what? Everybody's got their own narrative of their story of what happened and how and why it happened. And this, and I'm like, look, I have moved on so much in my life. I have found so much peace in my life to the point where I'm not going to sit here and argue or allow someone to dictate or to take a pen and write my story for me or tell me what has been going on in my life ever since, because they're not entitled to that. The only person that knows what's going on in my life is me and God upstairs. And of course, my therapist, because I tell my therapist everything and I'm very transparent with my therapist. But it's like, I spent the last week thinking about, why does this bother me? Why can I not just say, you know what, you're right? Whatever you say, whatever comes out of your mouth, whatever you preach, whatever you write, it is what it is. And I can't wait to get to that point where I don't care about what someone says about me. But the fact for them to like discredit everything, like the healing journey that I've been on, discrediting all the work that I've put in, all the stuff that I've done to become a better person, for them to discredit it, it reminds me why it was best that we didn't work out. This is a person that during the pandemic claims during the whole entire relationship that they always rooted for me, that they always wanted the best for me. But I didn't really see that. I saw moments in my life where I was going through certain milestones, and this person was the most supportive. When my grandmother passed away, this person was not the most supportive, even though they did send flowers to the funeral to my family, which I truly, truly appreciate, and my family appreciated. But this person allowed all the problems in our relationship to take over everything. And if I had like a milestone, like if I was like, hey, I got a new gig, or I just got a new promotion, I don't think this person was ever genuinely happy for me. I remember back in the pandemic, I had a conversation with Ric Flair, and I've spoken about this story. I've been very vocal about this story in the past, where I was like, look, when ARCG celebrated 7 years, Ric Flair gave me a shout out. And when this person saw the video, instead of saying like, oh, congratulations on the milestone, 7 years, and oh my God, Ric Flair, congratulations on that. they had a question to ask me. And the question was, hey, is this a cameo video? That made me feel so disrespected and so low, because I said, wow, like I've busted my butt for the last 7 years. We're literally in a pandemic right now. And all my hard work to you is just me reaching out to Ric Flair and paying him God knows what, because I think Ric Flair charges like what, $2,000 for a video or something. I don't know. Like I know he charges over $1,000, that's for sure. But I'm like, all the hard work that I've done, all the hard work and sacrifice, and to you, it's just paying off a celebrity to give me a shout out. That broke me. That crushed me, because it made me feel like that person didn't believe in me. And then recently I reached out to them to make them aware that I was still reading some of the things that they write about me. And I was like, look, like, like, I'm sad. I'm really sad. But, recently this person went through something where, they almost lost their life. And I genuinely reached out because I wanted to make sure that they were okay. I still care about this person. This was somebody that was in my life for 2.5 years, more than that, because we were dating for 2.5 years. But this person was in my life for a while. And I'm like, I'm a human being at the end of the day. And I reach out to them to see if they're okay. But their expectation was that I needed to apologize to them first about everything that happened between us. Even when I moved on with my ex-girlfriend, Ashley, and I started dating her. And I'm like, can you not have an expectation of how I'm supposed to reach out to you and allow me to be myself? And don't make this about my relationship with so and so, and don't make this about our past. I'm genuinely reaching out to you because I care. And I was very, very like concerned. And the way they responded to it, and one of the things that they wrote about me was, because I poured my heart out and said something, they referred to it as me using ChatGPT to send them a message. And I said, so this person now believes that I don't have the emotional intelligence or the capacity to even pour my heart. I've poured my heart out to this person the entire time that I've known them. I've sent them paragraphs and paragraphs in text messages. And people that know me will say this. Before ChatGPT was even a thing, people will say, Rob sends long paragraphs, because as much as I speak, I put that same energy into texting. So yeah, sometimes my text messages could be brief, but for the most part, a lot of them are long. But their only thought in their mind is that because I sent them a long message, and maybe it was me just trying to be as casual as possible and respectful, it's automatically like, well, he doesn't talk like this, so this is a ChatGPT thing. It brought me right back to the Ric Flair video. And I said, this person's never believed that I am on a certain capacity, I'm a certain level. They've always thought that they were better than me. They literally said to me once, maybe more than once, that they were better than me. And when you're in a relationship with someone like that, that constantly reminds you that they're better than you and that they're above you, that you're not on their level, that's not a good relationship. That's not a healthy relationship. Keyword, it's not a healthy relationship. You don't say things like that to your partner. No matter what you guys are going through in life, you don't try to put the other person down. If somebody hurts you, you are entitled to tell them, you hurt me, you broke my feelings. I don't think you're a good person. But to take them down the way my ex took me down so many times, where I even said to myself, what am I doing here? I don't have any purpose in life. I'm a failure. I'm a fuck up, I failed them. I failed my mom, my family, everybody. I failed myself. What's the purpose of me being around? And this goes back to, men suffering in silence. And this person, in the entire relationship that I was with them, they constantly dismissed how I felt all the time. I couldn't talk about my mental health because it was an excuse. Oh, this is an excuse for all the shitty things that you do. And I was like, I can't even express why I feel that I'm doing the things that I do. So this is someone that I love from a distance. This is someone that I will continue to love from a distance. And I just can't associate with that person because they already have, a mindset of who I am and who I was to them. And there's nothing I can do to change it. And it's completely fine. And it's sad to say that I will always love this person from a distance. I will always root for them for their success. They will never root for me because they have made it very clear that they don't care about me, that they don't care about what I do. If anything, all they want is for karma to always continue to come for me. And I'm like, they sound hurt, they sound bitter, and that's completely fine. Hopefully, if they are on a healing journey, they can heal. They can heal and find peace, just like I have been trying to find peace with what Ashley did to me last year. And ultimately, I shared this whole thing with everyone because it's just something that, it recently happened. It was on my mind. And I said, I think it's important to talk about this because during these episodes, everybody hears more about Ashley, but they never hear about the past relationships. And eventually later on down the line, I will start talking more about the past relationships. And I even like this whole entire subject that I just touched on. I spoke to my friend about it as well. My friend was like, this is someone who the last time you saw them was 2023. It's 2025. They're still holding a grudge on you. They still hate you. They still think you're the worst. They don't care about anything you've done in the last year and a half. They actually think, if anything, it's all your karma. They don't even know what's going on. They don't know anything about your health condition, like all the stuff that you've been going through, your liver problems, your diabetes. They don't care about that stuff because all they care about is being mad at you. And, let them be mad and just continue to live your life, Rob, and let that person deal with whatever it is that they have against you. Let them deal with that on their own and with God. And I was like, yeah, I guess it's the only thing I can do. And then, my friend asked me another series of questions. And one of the questions that they asked me were, what can men start doing today to take control of their mental health? And I was like, today, like modern day society, I was like, well, it sounds easier said than done, but the first thing men should do today is talk. Open up to a friend. Like I speak to my friends about my problems and whatnot. Open up to a therapist or even journal. And I've spoken about this in the past. Like, I have a memory journal where I talk about what's going on and whatnot with me. Sometimes I write notes on my cell phone and I share things with people, all the time and say, what do you think about this? The Resilience Tribune, it was created in a form of a journal. I wrote myself a love letter last month because I was turning 39, and you can check it out. It's the most recent. Actually, it's not the most recent because it was just another. There was another publishing that just posted a few days ago on the Resilience Tribune from this gentleman named Carmelo, who I had been waiting to hear his story for a long time. And it was a deep one. And you could check out my story, Resilient Forever, and their story right now on the Resilience Tribune by visiting the website, resilienctribune.com. It's right here on the bottom, /publications. And you could check out all the other, publications that I've been on the Resilience Tribune platform since January, the beginning of the year. So I also said, look, today men should create habits that serve their peace. And most importantly, remind themselves that they are not weak for needing help. And remember the most important thing here, folks. You are human. At the end of the day, you're a human being. So don't ever forget that. You are entitled to your emotions, to your feelings, to whatever the case may be. You're entitled to all of that. Don't let anybody else tell you different. So my friend goes to me, Rob, I really love hearing your perspective about things because you know how to dissect it. And I was like, well, I do my best in dissecting it. Some of the those conversations that are hard to have, I like having them, even though sometimes I'm scared to have those type of conversations because you never know how people are going to react. But, you know, you have to have those tough conversations. And, before we wrap up, I want to mention that what I hope listeners and people watching this episode right now on YouTube can take away from this episode is that healing is possible. Strength and softness can coexist, and that real men feel, cry, love, and break and still get back up. It's okay. You are a real man if you still cry, if you still feel whatever it is that you feel, if you still break. It's resilience. And most importantly, that you are never alone in your fight. You're never alone. I've expressed this so many times. If anybody ever feels a certain way and you feel like you have no one to talk to, reach out to me. Reach out to me on my social media. I'm not hard to find. I'm at Rob Aurelius on every platform. Reach out to me at The Resilient Pod right here on the bottom. TRP on X and Instagram, The Resilient Pod. Reach out to me there. I check those messages as well too, even though I have someone who helps me manage my social media accounts. And folks, while you're doing that, while you're embracing your pain and whatnot, I want to mention that something to help you cope is, of course, the treatment that I've been on, which is the products, the holistic medication that I take from my good friend Victor Melgar. From Nala Health. And you go on the website, nalahealth.com, which is right here on the bottom. And any product that's on that website, any product, it doesn't matter which one it is, put it in your cart. Fill out the assessment. There's a free assessment on that website. It helps Victor and his people assess you better and know exactly what's going on with you, with your symptoms, whatnot. And anything you put in your cart and you purchase every single time, not just a one-time purchase, but every single time, if you use the code TRP10, which is right here, you get 10% off of your order. And some of the products on there, which I love, is like the regular CBD that I take. I take the anxiety formula. From the Terp Effects, I take creativity and energy to give me that purpose to want to work and to want to, sometimes I take a drop of it to just do this podcast on the days, not every single episode that I've done, I have felt my best, but I still do my very best. And thanks to Victor's products, they really help. And it's all about support and love. So I'm supporting and showing love to Victor. Speaking about support and love, if you want to get some swag from the Resilient Podcast, like, for example, this jacket that I have right here that says Resilience, right? For those that are watching on YouTube, Resilience jacket with the Resilience logo on it. You can get your very own, and you can get t-shirts and hoodies by visiting my partner website for your wear. So all you have to do is just go to the ResilienceTribune.com. Click on the section that says shop, TRP shop, and it takes you straight to that website. Support the movement, support the Resilient Podcast. Be part of resiliency. So, folks, I appreciate everyone that tuned in today. I really do. And I look forward to the next episode, episode 34, which will be towards the end of the month. I also wanted to say happy Pride to all my LGBT friends and happy Men's Health Month. We have to take care of ourselves, brothers. We have to, because no one else is going to take care of us but ourselves. So please, be in your fields, do whatever it is that you need to do, as long as you don't harm yourself. but go out there and chase greatness and go out there and be the best that you can be. And don't feel sorry for yourself. You may fall down, but you get back up and you try again. And, being resilient is not a choice. It is not an option. It is what needs to be done. You need to be resilient. So today, from the cards of James, I want to talk about how, difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. You may start off in the wrong place, but I promise you that at some point you will be able to overcome, and where you end up is going to be something that you're going to be happy about. You're going to look back and say, like, I was here before, I was in this dark hole, but now I can see the light. And that's where you want to go. You want to go on that road to get yourself out of the problem. Those roadblocks, those hurdles that will be in your way. But once you overcome all of that, that's resilience. So, folks, this is the first episode of the month, episode 33. I appreciate you all tuning in. If you guys want to submit your stories for the Resilient Tribune, feel free at TheResilientTribune.com. If you want to be on this podcast as a guest, reach out to me at info@ResilientTribune.com. And this is it. This is all I have for this episode. So again, I truly appreciate you all tuning in, and I look forward to the next episode, and I will see you all then. But for now, remember to always remain resilient and take good care of yourself. I love you all. Peace.